Welcome to the Denton Vibe with Diva Girl Ellie, powered in part by Classic of Denton.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on the Denton Vibe with Diva Girl Ellie on dentonradio.com. Today, it's a very mixed day of emotions out there with the rain and sprinkles and then the sunshine. So I hope y'all are having fun, whatever you're doing. But today we have Robin Hatash here with a creative art studio. And thank you so much, Robin, for coming in and visiting with us. And you're about to tell us all about a creative art studio and what goes on over there. But let's hear a little bit about you and who you are as a Dentonite.
As a Dentonite, I came here like a lot of people. I came here to go to UNT,
Yes.
but at the time it was North Texas State University.
Mm-hmm.
And I just loved Denton when I came here. I grew up in Fort Worth, which was much bigger,
Mm-hmm.
but I really liked the small town feel of Denton, and so I stayed here. And I got my degree at North Texas State,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went to TWU for a while, and then I
Mhm.
went back to North Texas for a while, and I jumped around in different fields like science and, home economics and art and just lots of different things.
Mm-hmm. So you were bouncing back and forth. You were like, I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay here and be in school, huh?
That's right. I'm a schoolaholic.
There you go. So how did you switch from science to art? I mean, did you have a passion for each one where you were like, I'm going to start a career in science, and then you just had the art passion on the side, or was it reverse? You're like, my passion is art, but I'm going to go make a living with science.
I think I did love both. Like, I always did art, and in
Mhm.
school I would sit and doodle in class all the time, and
Mhm.
I'd draw fashion things, and
Oh, nice.
when I was really young. And then I apprenticed as a stained glass person,
Oh.
and I apprenticed here in Denton, and I love doing stained glass. I love the look of light coming through the
Mhm.
glass and how it refracts. And so I decided I'm going to go for doing stained glass. And so I couldn't really support myself doing that.
Mhm.
So I started teaching, and when I taught science. But I worked art into my science classes, like they would have to build volcanoes, and when we studied heat, they'd make candles. And so I always tried to work arts and crafts into my science class.
That's really interesting because a lot of people will think, well, it's just all, technical stuff. And it's really not. When you get creative, there is an art to a lot of things that we wouldn't regularly, think art would be in it. But science would be the perfect, combination to partner that with, because of the fact that you can get really creative. And we always think of science projects and the volcano
Mm-hmm.
or the planets and how different you can be. I got to set myself apart from all the rest of the class to, be more creative, because
Exactly.
that's what sets them apart when you really think about it, the creativity that goes into a science project. So that's really interesting that you would pull that element in to a very, well, not a very basic, but one of our basic structural classes, science. So that's really neat.
Yeah.
And the kids, what grade was it?
I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th. And actually, I taught 9th grade, too, which was physical science. So
Nice. So
all
they were
those.
very enthused by that aspect of it.
They really loved all the labs. And, I know that there's some problems with teachers not doing enough labs, and I
Mhm.
might have gone overboard doing too many labs. But I think it really kept them interested in what they were doing.
It does, because I think you keep them engaged and it's more hands-on, and they like that because at that age they're curious. I mean, they're curious all through their childhood and into their teenage years, but you get to get in there, put some elbow grease into your projects and stuff like that. So you get to put your hands on all the mushy stuff for the volcanoes or glitter on the
Right.
the planets or whatnot. So I bet you that was a lot of fun. So how did you transition from science and teaching science into the art community and being an art a structural person of art here in Denton?
I think I began teaching art at like UNT. I
Mhm.
taught many courses, and so I taught stained glass and fused glass and mosaic classes through the mini courses, which were classes that were hands-on. I think now they mainly do courses that are through the computer,
Mhm.
but used to they did lots of hand-on classes for the public and the
Mhm.
community here in Denton. So I started doing that, and then I never could get the exact classroom I needed.
Mhm.
So I thought, I'm going to build a home studio,
Oh,
and then
wow.
I'll transfer those to my home studio. And I do have a nice home studio with lots of light,
Mhm.
but now I never use it because I'm always at a creative art studio. So I taught school, and also I became a diagnostician for Denton Public School. And then one day I just thought, I'm going to flip-flop my life, and I'm going to do art as a priority. And it was a hard decision, but it was kind of an impulsive decision too. Because I think maybe, you know, if you think about it, you have a steady job, steady income, and all of a sudden you're going to go to
peace of mind.
Yeah, you're going to go to risky, something risky. So I did that, and I was driving down Oak Street one day, and I saw the building that I'm currently in for rent. And I went and I peeked in the window, and I thought, I can do something with this. But actually, if I think back, I think I used to always think it'd be so cool to have an old brick building to have a business in on the square. And I didn't know at the time it might be an art gallery and studio, but, you know, I visualized that, and I think, here I am doing it.
You're really lucky, because that is a really nice piece of real estate that you have there. That little corner over there. For those of you that have seen a creative art studio, she's right on the corner. It's one of the first things you see as you're coming in from that direction is your shop. And it's just really neat to be able to be a part of the square and the square culture here in Denton, and bring you know, because we are known for music and whatnot, but the other side of us is the flip side, which is the art. And I love that there's an art studio right on the square, or right around the square, and to be able to offer the services that you do. So you saw this piece of real estate, and you peeked in the window, and I can imagine your mind started. Your wheels started turning.
Yeah, started turning, and I could just see myself in there making things. And I knew at that point I was going to be there. And I remember I called the landlord, and I called her a million times, and she was on vacation. She kept saying, "Don't you know I'm on vacation?" I said, "I just want you to know how I want this."
So she was very aware that you were going to be the next person in that building.
Maybe too aware.
So that's really neat. And so when you finally signed on, okay, this is me, this is my building. How did it feel opening up your studio? What were your thoughts? How did you creatively, you know, plan out the whole process of what was going to become a creative art studio?
Well, once I decided to do it, I thought, oh, this might have been too impulsive of a decision, and I felt a little hesitant. But I read a book, and it was called Visionary Business, and it said if you ever start a business, to keep your community in mind, and as long as you're serving your community,
very true,
you'll be successful. And I had been a school teacher, which you serve the community, and so that was an easy transition. And I thought I could bring this into the business world, and how can I serve the community and artists and have fun at the same time? Because fun is, I really wanted to have fun there.
So you took that risk, you made the big leap of faith, and as you said, impulsively, but you were following your dream. I would imagine that it was in your heart. You're like, art is calling me. I'm going to start this business. And you took that transition, which you say was a natural transition. I would imagine so, because you're trading one classroom environment for another one. And so this one is more tailor-made to your persona, to your art expertise, to your style, to your teaching technique. You know, you don't have the curriculum hanging all over your, you know. So
Right.
I can imagine just having that freedom, opening up a shop. And of course, there's going to be pressure, because I would imagine you would feel that. But just how did it feel when you finally opened up the doors to a creative art studio?
When I opened the doors, I thought, this is like a dream come true, and dreams do come true. And my friends who knew me in my other job, they would come by and they would say, this is where you always belonged. You know, not that I didn't belong in the school, because I loved that too, but I felt like I was just more at home doing art.
You were radiating there. That you're radiant there. You were.
Maybe so.
Yes, I would imagine that you were in your element. You finally found your home. Not that any other place wouldn't have been, but you were in your element. And I think you were, you know, producing or teaching, like you giving the knowledge away to other people so that they can go out and have fun too. Because it is important to have fun, especially with something like that I feel is so therapeutic and very calming and very just. It's peaceful. Art can be peaceful and chaotic at times. But so let's talk about how you started to build up a creative art studio. You opened up, I know you had that first, you know, opening, I'm sure you had grand opening. So what was it like when people were coming in and you had your first week there?
My first week was very slow because I didn't really have a budget to advertise. So like as people would come in, I was mainly a studio at that time, and I didn't really know it would become a gallery also. But in the book Visionary Business, it said, sit back and let your business go to what it wants to be. And so you have to stay flexible with it, because if you're real rigid in your thought about your business, that might not work, but you have to be open to what can work.
That's really smart as far as not putting up roadblocks for yourself. Because like you said, you're serving the community, and if the community is calling for something that you're able to offer, but don't because it didn't fit in your original plan, then you would be selling yourself short with such a, a nice community that we have here wanting a lot of art. So, did you plan on having classes, or were you just like, okay, this is a studio, now it's a gallery, are we going to offer classes, or how did that happen?
I kind of offered classes from the beginning, and mainly just stained glass classes. But I started painting and drawing more and doing lots of different things, because I've always been a person, I want to dabble in everything, and I want to know how to do it. And so I started thinking, maybe I'll just teach all the different things I know how to do. So I started expanding the classes there. And then I've also had different people teach there. Like we've had a wood carver teach there, a mixed media artist who's a teacher in Louisville. We've had several different people teach different classes.
So I was just going to ask you that. Is it open to other artists to come in and utilize the art studio as a platform, basically, to teach their creative arts as well? And obviously you did say that you did have other artists. So when I first went in there, it was a store, kind of like a store, or is a store, and it was where you purchase art that other artists or yourself had made. And so that's what I always thought it was. And then when I started seeing people in there actively taking classes, or being active artists in there, it was like, oh, that's really neat. And I know you've implemented some other stuff that I was like, oh, I didn't know she had that there, which is the jazz or the music that you do. And you do that. You offer several classes, but one of the other things you do is you offer the music there as well.
Yes, and I love the music opportunity that happens, because we all know in Denton we've lost a few venues for the music. But a friend of mine came to me and said, would you like to do First Friday? And I thought, what's that? And then I thought, that sounds like a lot of fun. So instantly I thought that I would do music with First Friday. And the very first Friday, I had Glenn Ferris play his guitar and sing there. And then I bribed all my friends to come to the First Friday, and I served them dinner with pie.
You did?
Before First Friday.
That was a good bribe. I'm serving
really
dinner,
good.
come over. Full house, I bet.
That's right. And so anyway, that was the very first Friday, and it's really caught on, and people come to expect First Friday. We can go down, and a creative arts studio will always have music and something to do.
That's really neat. And I know that here in Denton, we become creatures of habit, and, whatever's going on during the week, we become, used to it. So what happened to this? If it's not there, we're like, where is it? What happened to the open mic? What happened to this? So, people get used to that routine, because we always have something going on here on the square, and you can come to depend on that. You can go to all the little venues here, or, go to your studio, and there's always something going on. So it's like the days go by quicker, the week goes by quicker when you have little things to go to and break the week up with something fun. So what kind of classes do you offer there?
Well, right now I have stained glass classes. I have stained glass, that's a 6-week course, so you really get to make a small project and then do a larger panel. And then I also have, if you want to just dabble in it, I have a suncatcher workshop that takes 3 hours. And people are usually surprised it takes so long to make stained glass, and it's labor intensive, but it's worth it because everything is so beautiful. So I teach stained glass and watercolor, beginning watercolor, and then sometimes I'll do watercolor workshops like watercolor batik, or painting on Yupo, are using like a masking fluid with watercolor,
Mm-hmm.
because people, they might take the beginning and they want to take more and learn more about it. And then acrylic and mixed media, where you get to paint with acrylic but also learn about the different mediums that you can use with the acrylic paint.
Mm-hmm.
And drawing. I have a weekly drawing class.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes people don't want to take a class, but they might want to just drop in and paint.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have that opportunity on Fridays, and I'm there to help them, to instruct them if they want it. They can get as much or as little instruction.
Oh, that's really neat. So they don't feel like they're trapped in a classroom if they just want to have a free-flowing method of painting and whatnot.
Right.
And so you do have buildable classes basically, because I would imagine with the watercolor, you take the basic, and then if you wanted to further your skills or learn more, you can take the other classes and advance and whatnot. So what are your age ranges that you cater to?
I have a lot of adult classes, but I also have children classes. I do after-school classes, and
very
they
nice.
continue through the summer. And sometimes I'll do 2-hour morning workshops for kids, and through the summer. And then I have a lot of homeschoolers that they can set up whatever time works out with my schedule and their schedule. So if they want to have a group of kids and they want to set up a class for them, an art class, we do that. And then I do private lessons too.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I know a lot of times we forget that, the kids are very creative. They're like little sponges, and it's neat to keep them entertained, but as well learning as far as the art. We were just talking about this beforehand, and how kids just, sponge it all up, and they're curious about those things. They get their hands dirty, and it's exciting to them to be able to learn and paint and create and get excited about showing their parents and whatnot. And then for the more, the older kids or the preteens, I would imagine it's like a curiosity to see just how good they are at something and to be able to excel in that. And then they get challenged, and, whatever happens, there may be an artist that's born in your class, or that's, nurtured in your class. And that's really exciting to see the kids become so involved with art. And it's great that you're catering to them in the classes and whatnot. I'm really curious about the watercolor, because I did mention beforehand that I'm very intimidated by the watercolor, because I think it's just going to run off the page and it'll just be a mess for me. But I would be really interested in trying to master I've never done it, so I don't know how hard it is. And I know people are intimidated sometimes by art. They're like, well, I don't know what to create. What do I create?
I have a lot of people who come in who have never painted, especially in the art parties, and they're amazed when they leave and they think, I painted this. And I always tell them to go set it up somewhere at home and look at it when they're not like right on top of it. And when I take their painting and back up with it, they're like usually pretty proud of it. But I think everybody can learn to do art. And the secret, I think, of watercolor is to be free with it, because watercolor kind of wants to do what it wants to do. And you just need to kind of guide it along and not try to control it as much. And you end up with something better.
I know that I've noticed watercolor on Instagram, and I know some of us have the bad habit of having our phones in our hand when we're in bed. And a lot of times I will resort to stuff like art to kind of shut my mind down. Well, not that it's going to shut down with art, but I'll sit there and watch the watercolor, and I see the people that dip their paintbrush on the page, and then it just creates this beautiful just running color. And then I'm like, how do they do that? How does it stay there? It looks like a disciplined art, really and truly. So I'm always curious about it, because I'm like, it's liquid, it's running. How do you keep it? So that to me is very intriguing. And you see it popping up more and more on Instagram. You see all these other techniques. It never amazes me. It never stops amazing me how art is just, one day you're looking at something so odd and peculiar, and then the next day somebody blows you out of the water with something you've never seen before. You're like, how do people come up with this stuff? There's so many things.
I think the secret of watercolor is to have good paper, and you want a decent brush. Like acrylic, I don't think you have to spend that much money, but you want to get good brushes for your watercolor. And you want to not paint like you're painting a house. Like I always tell everybody, you want to use a dancing brush, and I'll demonstrate. And I just kind of, my brush strokes are just real free. And that way it's not like you're not getting stripes and things like that, but to be a little free with that watercolor brush.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Like you said, you let it happen on its own, and you kind of just, I guess, guide it and whatnot. I'm gonna have to dabble into that. I've always been intimidated by it, but I'm gonna have to challenge myself with that. So you may see me pop up in one of your classes.
That would be great.
I would love that. And so I noticed that in your brochure you did have. Now a lot of times, a lot of people hear about the paint parties and whatnot, and those are always fun. I've done one before, and they're very, very fun, especially if you have a nice, fun bunch of people to do it with.
Oh, yeah.
And so you have this cactus paint party. Tell me a little bit about that, because I actually love cactus art. I do.
You'll enjoy this. And one thing I do when I have an art party, I look at it as trying to teach people how to paint, just not to paint exactly what I do. And so we start out kind of with guidelines so people won't feel intimidated. And I tell them that as we move along, you'll probably branch out on your own and start putting your personality in it. And I give lots of options on colors and design. And like I just did a paint party for a church group on Saturday, and they wanted to do some purses because it was girls' night out. And so at the last minute they said, we decided we want to do something different, and they all wanted to do something different, and I'm fine with that because I want them to make something that they enjoy doing. And so everybody got to do something a little bit different, and it all worked out real well.
Very nice. So you're very versatile. And so it does say the art parties that you have, come join the fun. You have regularly scheduled classes to bring your friends to. BYOB and snacks we will supply the fun. So you're open to basically letting them have the studio as their own house party of art,
right?
And you're okay with all the goodies and whatnot. So that makes for a fun environment. And then let's see, you also have. You did talk about the watercolor and the stained glass. You do the drawing and the kids stuff. So where would people go to find the information for all of this, the art classes and whatnot?
Well, I do have a website, but right now I'm in the process of rebuilding it. But you can find all my classes on Square Up under A Creative Art Studio.
Okay.
But if you go to my website, you can click on any class, and it will take you to the Square Up.
Okay, and so you're able to register on the Square Up, right?
Yeah, you can pay online, or you can call the studio and pay too. And then outside my door, I always have brochures in a little container out there, so you can stop by and pick up a brochure too.
Okay.
And I list them on Facebook also.
Okay, and now one of the other questions I had was, how do you become an artist that is included in your creative art studio, in a creative art studio?
Like if you want to display at the studio, you just need to talk to me. And if we have space on the wall, we can take things on walls. You have to have, like if you have something like a watercolor, it needs to be framed with a wire, because I have the old brick building with the walls, and so they're kind of uneven, so I always need something hanging with a wire. But there's a lot of people who don't want to go to the expense of a frame, so they'll like have a basket of prints or a basket of originals, or some kind of holder of their things, depending what they do, because we have ceramics and we have handmade jewelry, we have paintings, we have prints, we have weavings, we have like one of my students' grandmother crocheted, and she made some really cute crocheted tops and purses, and I like fibers too, so I kind of like a little bit of everything.
So you can go in there and actually shop for gifts for someone. So a lot of local artists have their stuff in there with you guys. So like you were mentioning, the baskets and the little containers of all their art, you can go in there and purchase stuff and take it with you. So it's not just the workshops, it's also you can purchase wonderful art from the community.
Right. We have 45 different artists that have work in the gallery.
Very nice.
And we have different prices, from inexpensive to like magnets and prints, up to expensive paintings, originals, and we have ceramic masks, handmade teapots, bowls,
Wow.
plates. We have a little bit of everything.
That's really awesome. I'm glad that you're catering to such a wide variety of just every art, basically, that's, comes in there to be servicing the community. That's wonderful. Now, do you have any future classes that you're going to be doing that are not on the brochure or not in the lineup yet?
I do. I have a mosaic class that's coming up
very nice.
in the fall. People have been asking for a long time for fused glass classes, and I used to teach those, so I'm going to be doing some more fused glass classes. And then what else am I going to do? Well, I know I'm going to do those, so those are definites.
Okay, so we know where to find you. You guys, she has plenty of stuff to do there. And if you just want to go in and take a peek, she's got over 45 artists, you said, that hang their artwork in there for purchase. So you guys, it's very important to support local artists and support local by shopping local. And so we're so glad that you're here on the square with us, Robin. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you being here telling us about your classes. I really need to get into that watercolor class. And you guys, don't forget the kids. Don't forget that the kids can go out there and learn some stuff too, and they can take it into their adulthood, and they can probably share their talents with other people as they grow. But
they do need leisure skills.
Yes, they do.
And it provides that for them.
Yes, definitely. I'm a strong believer in art. And so thank you so much for having a creative art studio here on the square and being here with us. You guys check her out on her website and on you're on Facebook as well?
And Instagram, and I tweet now and then.
Oh. Yes, we need to get more. I need to get into Twitter a lot more, trust me. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week here on the Denton Vibe with Diva Girl Ellie on DentonRadio.com.
Well, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out DentonRadio.com for new Denton artists and where they're playing next. While you're surfing the internet, make sure you check out our friends Classic of Denton at ClassicofDenton.com.